Juice, what are your initial thoughts looking at all this?
I hate it. Let me just preface. I hated it a lot earlier, probably a lot more earlier than I do now. As you step away from it, and the initial reaction was tons of hate for this stadium plan. Let me just preface this and saying I have a feeling that this thing's not over yet. I mean, it's clearly there's plenty of different things that are going to happen prior to any shovels being put in the ground. But I don't I don't. First of all, I don't understand on the eve of the draft why this is the announcement. I think when you're doing something like this, it deserves its own time. And I felt like in some ways it was a way to fire up your fan base prior to a huge day in Chicago Bears history. 2 picks in the top 10, picking a generational quarterback at number 1. I I feel like almost bamboozled by it in some ways. Like there's a reason why it's put, the day before the draft, but I look at the plans and I look at they're going to add 8 to 9 thousand more seats into this stadium and build it, and it's going to be taxpayer. We're going to get on all of that, but the biggest problem with the location to me is just logistically in and out of there. And Soldier Field and the Lakefront, to me, I just don't see how they're going to be able to meet the needs logistically to get there and get back and do all the infrastructure changes that need to be, implemented prior to this stadium being built. And I hate it. I hated the timing of the announcement. I don't like that they're going to add 9,000 seats but keep the same amount of parking. I mean, just to put it, as a season ticket holder, it's a raffle, and I've had my season tickets for 20 years. This will be my 21st year I've had season tickets with my family, and we've only had the parking 5 times ever because it's a raffle, and that irks me. It does. I think if you're going to build a stadium, you should solve the infrastructure problems that it has right now. And if they can do it, if that's changes can be made, sure. But I don't know. I got a huge problem with asking for taxpayer money and then building something that I think is half-assed in some ways. I think that there's some parts of this that are just a mess. And I don't know, maybe it's tactic. Maybe it's something that they're doing to bolster up so that they can go to Arlington Heights and work the tax system. But I don't know. I hated the announcement. I hated the way they did it, the prayer at the beginning. And I don't know. It's so Bears. It's Bearsy. And you get tired of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely something a little weird about the whole process here of like the day before the draft. This is when half the beat is probably in Detroit by now,
Mm-hmm.
and so they can't get the same questions. Like, there's something that feels a little off about a lot of it in just the timing and the that aspect of why would you do it today? Why would you do it like there's less coverage? And I don't know, something just feels a little weird about it. I am really interested to find out more about what their projections say for the tax dollars that they're looking for, because as you dive into it, what they're looking for is for the IFSA to basically take out debt, right? To take out a
Yeah.
bond for like $900 million, giant amount of money, right? But and within that they'll refinance existing debt and put it all on a fresh amortization. And the way government debt works, like if you want to buy a house, right? You buy the house with the bank money and the bank takes the house as collateral. When a government wants to borrow money, there's no house. There's no tangible collateral. The collateral they take is the right to future tax dollars. So as long as they're not defaulting on the loan, it's not like all the tax dollars for the net that year are going towards paying the loan. As long as they don't default on it, they just make their regular payments on it until it's paid off. And that makes it really interesting to me because there is a question of, so like, the tax dollars they're going to be taking is hotel tax.
Mm-hmm.
And the hotel taxes should theoretically go up through this because you're bringing in more people into the stadium, more people through the city for it, especially as you're talking about maybe getting a Super Bowl, maybe getting a Big Ten championship game. You should be getting more people in hotel rooms paying that hotel tax and covering a lot of that. But I don't know what that number is, and I don't know where the reasonable rate is unless we see projections on what that actually looks like. It's really hard to put a value on that, which is where it hits a weird spot. And we have Bears Junkie 23 Hall of Fame in the comments. No, the Bears can take out a loan. I completely get that aspect, right? Like the Bears can take out a loan and do this themselves, right? They can't do that on the lakefront, though. That's the thing. They
Nope.
need the city to stay on the lakefront. They can't buy the land there. They can't own the land there. That is park district land. It will never get done. And so if they want to stay on the lakefront, they need to work in conjunction with the city. Now, maybe you could say the Bears should be paying for all of it to do it with the city. And, if that's your take, I get that too, honestly, right? There's probably some greed aspect to this from the ownership of like, well, there's the city's benefiting from this, so maybe we can get something out of them. Maybe we can get our cake out of it. It's human nature. I can't blame them, but I'm not going to sit here and say I love it either. That's kind of the ugly side of NFL stadiums, I think. But Juice, what do you think about the tax dollars, that aspect of it? Like, how do you feel about like it being hotel tax that maybe that might be paying the loan, or do you think it's going to end up being like that won't really cover it and they're going to have to raise something somewhere else?
Let's go back to 2003 and look at the numbers at what taxpayers ended up paying for that stadium. I mean, that ended up being upwards of, I think it was above $400 million worth of taxpayer money to build that stadium. The Bears were only on the hook for somewhere around 262 million to do those renovations, I believe. And in the beginning, that thing was sold the same way. Oh no! And the funniest part of the press conference is Mayor Brandon Johnson getting up there and screaming, "No new tax dollars." That's impossible. It's literally impossible. It's going to find somewhere. You may not see it in your tax dollars, but how are you able to lie to my face like that and say that it's not going to be, somewhere in the pudding where you see it and don't see it? It's not feasible. The same lady who stood up and did that press conference is the same one who was on the panel with Ted Phillips that botched the last one. They still haven't paid for the previous renovation. That's another thing. Where's the money coming from? That's the other thing too. And to sit and say that it's going to be out of the fund and they're going to not raise taxes. It's crap. And yeah, they're going to front their whatever 2.3 billion or 2.4 billion worth of money from, but the NFL is throwing in what 400 million of
300.
that or 300 million of that, and they're going to do some work to that's not all liquid. Obviously, the McCaskies don't
Right.
have that.
No, there has to be private investment there. That's not that. There's no way that's McCaskey's. They're raising funds for that.
Right, but it seems like this is just so positioning, right? In some ways, and it's also it's a way to beat them to May, right? Because they've already said like we would like to have this voted on and approved and through by when state legislators leave in May. That's bullshit. Like that's
Well, I mean, they still have to deal with Friends of the Park, right?
right,
Like
right.
that's the huge hurdle here. And in the comments, we got Bruja7. The revenue increases should make up in the long run. It was explained in the presentation by the numbers lady. And Bruja, I hear you. I feel you. Like the presentations, they make it seem very easy, right? Very right. And there's a lot of gray area within some of this where, yeah, the numbers say the hotel tax increases will cover it 100%, right? Or not even increases. The hotel tax growth will cover this. We don't even know what the projections are yet. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, that will happen. I think one of the things I need to constantly remind myself with this, and whenever I'm looking at a construction project that is counting on the revenues from the project to pay for the debt, is it's a sales pitch. It's all
100%.
a sales pitch. It 100% of the time. So I'm not saying it's all lies, but I'm just saying I need to look at it with a skeptical eye sometimes too and question it until we get more hard numbers. I mean, the hard numbers need to come out. This is a taxpayer voted thing. There needs to be pure evidence for people to be willing for their tax dollars to go towards it, right? It needs to all make sense. And I encourage anyone out there who is worried about their tax bill with this, it's all public information. All the financials on this thing, like the IFSA, I went on their website today, pulled their annual financial statements, and started skimming through them, looking for, how is this going to work? And the IFSA, most of their revenue comes from that hotel tax, that 2% hotel tax in the city of Chicago. That's something like 50 million of their $80 million in annual revenue. So, and they're basically a shell entity to hold debt and service that debt. That's primarily what it does, and does that for professional athletic stadiums. That's the entire purpose of the organization.
And I don't think we should be like praising the Bears that they put up funds. Like, great. They should. And this is the thing too. If you're going to spend this amount of money, why not do it right? To me, like, why is the lake a great spot for this stadium logistically? It's just not. If you've attended a Bears game ever, it's a horrible out. It's a mess to get to. It's tough to. There's not enough parking for
Yeah.
even all the season ticket holders, let alone people who want to go and enjoy the city. And no matter where you park within it, it's a long walk. And the last thing I will be doing is getting on a bus from the Bears to go to a game. That adds in more time that I have to pack up and get the hell and get on the bus and get into the stadium. And then after the game, where I would just love to just walk to my car and get out of there. No, I got to get on a bus to get on a thing to go, wait in a traffic line to get out. If they move the parking, let's say that their plan is to expand off of 31st and Martin Luther King over there. That's the south lot for McCormick Place. They could possibly do something like that, but then again, that's almost 2 miles away. That's not close.